Hello, and welcome to yet another lesson that is focused on our mental health and how we can make some key progress in protecting our mental health. Today, our focus is on mental fatigue or mental exhaustion. Mental fatigue or mental exhaustion. And we'll try to understand what mental fatigue is, some of the key causes or risk factors, the signs or symptoms of mental fatigue, and what you can do to address these. So, when we look at our daily engagements, most of us find ourselves in work or in academic environments where we get so much workload to undertake. And whether you are a student who is dealing with different course expectations and trying to get the best out of every course that you are taking, and uh, the demands sometimes get so much, and so we begin to get frustrated, begin to lose sleep, and there's a lot that happens in these circumstances. And at work, in trying to make ends meet, in trying to get yourself doing a lot to bring in stability with your finances and all that, sometimes you can get yourself overworked in different jobs and different work activities. Sometimes the workload and expectations in the kind of work you find yourself can be so demanding, and these demands are related to your mental capacity. So sometimes we are psychologically involved to the extent that, as we see in the second image, we feel our brain is on fire, our head is on fire, and that there's that sense of being out of touch with ourselves, and this is what we experience for the most part. And as an individual who goes through this a lot of times, particularly as I also combine graduate studies with my work life and other schedules, it gets difficult sometimes, and sometimes you feel that you are just getting a brain or mental meltdown, and this is what we refer to as mental fatigue. And mental fatigue or exhaustion can be simply described as mental tiredness or psychological tiredness, and this usually results from an intense or prolonged mental or cognitive activity. So if you are involved in a lot of mental activity in relation to academic work or your corporate work, or any other activity that demands a lot of mental thinking, processing of information, and decision making, so much workload on your brain activity, intense and prolonged, can result in mental fatigue or exhaustion. And this is a condition that will typically affect individuals who have demanding academic or work schedules, and which has an effect on their rest cycles or schedules. So there's no adequate rest when it comes to how they are mentally engaged during the day or through the night. And this can have a significant effect on your overall efficiency and productivity as a person. So mental fatigue, mental exhaustion is a key issue that we need to pay attention to, just as we also pay attention to our physical health and visit the hospital when you feel a headache, you feel a stomach ache, and all that. We also need to pay attention to our mental health, and particularly when it comes to our mental exhaustion experiences. And so, just as we all get physically tired when you are involved in a physical activity, So if your work is physically demanding, then you would experience a lot of physical pains and lot of tiredness. You feel that your body is worn out by the work you have done. The same way when your work is mentally demanding, or you are involved in schedules or activities that keep you in a state where you are mentally overloaded with information, whether at work or at school, whatever it is, you can also get your mind becoming tired, the brain literally uh, halting or breaking down because of prolonged intense activity. What are some of the symptoms of mental fatigue? So usually when you are becoming uh, fatigued mentally, psychologically, it's not sudden. It begins gradually, and sometimes it's difficult to spot it until you break down, and your physical body begins to take the consequence or effect of all the mental exhaustion you've been going through. And typically, mental fatigue or mental exhaustion uh, can be related to depression, anxiety, mood related disorders, and it may not necessarily be that you are going through depression or anxiety or you have a mood disorder, but the continuous engagement in cognitive or mentally demanding activities can result in mental fatigue. And if you don't deal with it, you may end up getting into depression or anxiety and related mental health conditions. So some of the symptoms are depressive symptoms of sadness, hopelessness, and people that are depressed experience a lot of hopelessness because they feel their efforts are not yielding results, or they are not getting what they feel they should be getting. So at the end of the day, you become quite cold, indifferent. There's no energy or motivation to be engaged in conversations, in discussions. It's like you just lose yourself. You don't feel yourself, as we would say. You don't feel yourself again. You become cold, and there's a lot of pessimism that begins to pop out gradually. You become pessimistic if it comes to your academic work performance, or corporate life, business. You become pessimistic because you have overworked your mental state, such that, just like a machine, it's like you need some refueling for you to begin to have a better sense of what is happening around your life. So um, some of the symptoms of mental fatigue, or signs of mental fatigue, could be depressive symptoms of sadness, hopelessness, coldness, pessimism, and others. It could also be anxiety, related symptoms of fear, poor concentration, and a loss of control when you are engaged in tasks or given certain responsibilities or assignments. You feel inadequate. You begin to feel that the what it takes to get a good job done, you lack it. And this is a typical sign of someone who is mentally out of place, fatigued or exhausted. Just like when you are physically exhausted or tired and the body is not responding, you may have a difficulty engaging in a number of tasks and having a sense of being in control. So if the brain is tired and your mind is overworked, you are mentally over stimulated, you may have issues with concentration. And we'll talk about how, in addressing it, some of the things we talk about help to improve your concentration levels and make you more in control. So anxiety symptoms can be seen when you are mentally exhausted or fatigued, or when your brain is literally tired. Then we have migraine headaches, which are typical when you are feeling exhausted. And I get that a lot of times when, with the work I do, a lot of content, a lot of cognitive, engagements, and you always have to be reading, you always have to be engaged in research and finding information. And the support I give to students from various, angles. And so you always have to be on top of your game when it comes to your intellectual abilities and capacity. So it gets to those times where you have severe headaches, and migraine headaches are acute headaches, very painful, very severe. Could just be short headaches and all that, and it will go. Sometimes you just need a good shower, a little sleep, and it goes. You may not need to take any painkiller, or to deal with it. So migraine headaches are a sign that you may probably be getting into mental a mental breakdown. Then we have sleep problems, so insomnia. And a lot of times when you are involved in work, a lot of cognitive, mentally engaging activity without breaks, without adequate breaks and rest, you would be disturbing your sleep cycle. And that also has to do with, what we call the circadian rhythm, which is our body's natural clock for regulating our sleep. So during the course of the day, you may not have that bit of wanting to sleep, but at night, once that clock is working, it sets in the need to sleep. So more of the neurotransmitter or hormone called melatonin is produced towards the night, so that you will be able to fall asleep and maintain your sleep through the night. But certain activities, overworking through the night, taking caffeine and all that just to keep you longer in terms of staying awake, disrupts that rhythm, and that could lead to a lot of sleep related problems. So insomnia and sleep related problems are typical of a mentally fatigued or exhausted person. Increased procrastination and a lack of motivation for work. And that relates back to the issues relating to depressive and anxiety symptoms, and that sense of not being in control. And we would want to put it to tomorrow. I'll do it in the evening. I'll do it in the afternoon. And so we keep procrastinating key things that we are supposed to do, key lessons you are supposed to learn, and all that. You keep procrastinating because there's no motivation, there's no energy, to work, and that really makes you unproductive and ineffective for the most part. So these are just some signs or symptoms of mental fatigue that we can pay attention to. So when you begin to experience some of them, you may want to take a mental break. What are some of the causes or risk factors when it comes to mental fatigue? As we have mentioned before, when you are engaged in a lot of mentally demanding activities for long hours, so sometimes I can be behind my machine for the most part of the day, through the night behind my machine, working on either my assignments, my readings for my graduate program, and it's quite a demanding program. Clinical psychology is quite a demanding program. So there's a lot of work that is engaged, and I would have to be behind my laptop through the night sometimes. And at work, so that you spend a lot of time working with your brain, working with thinking, making decisions, trying to get thoughts together. And this can be one of the major causes of mental fatigue and exhaustion. So without the adequate breaks, without the adequate rest, you get to a point where you get mentally broken down. One of the other causes is poor sleep schedules and disruptions to your circadian circadian rhythm, which I explained much earlier. So there's a disruption to your sleep pattern. And so the natural body clock that tries to regulate your sleep and your rest is affected because there's caffeine you are taking in the evening so that you don't sleep early. The time that you feel like resting, you are not able to rest. So there's a disruption, and it's really has an effect on you. You are not sleeping, you are not resting, and the natural system that keeps you aware that at this time I should be resting. In the morning, when the sun begins to set in, the bit of serotonin which keeps us, aware, helps us in terms of our mood, kicks in. So you know that you are ready for the day. And to the night, melatonin setting in, you know that you need to take some rest. All of this is disrupted, and it has a key effect on your mental health, leading to a lot of mental exhaustion. The third, we can relate to academic demands and related distress. A lot of students, especially those in very demanding academic programs, have problems, with sleep and all that because they are always engaged, and there's little time to have rest, to engage in other activities that would help relax the brain. Work-related demands and their related frustrations. Financial distress can be a major cause of mental fatigue because you are always, the high, you are always looking for a way out to address your economic issue. You are always thinking, and some people end up even getting into some psychosis because of their financial distress that they are going through. So it's a major issue, a major problem that could be resulting in mental fatigue. Chronic physical or mental health conditions. So people that are going through chronic distress, chronic depression, they are likely to experience a lot of mental fatigue, feeling that your brain is on fire, your mind is just overloaded with a lot of question marks and exclamation marks, literally. And people that have chronic physical conditions, medical conditions, cancer, and all that, it's commonplace to have many of them experiencing mental fatigue or exhaustion. Um, and it really affects them with issues of hopelessness, as we mentioned earlier, and feeling not in control of themselves, and their sense of motivation, really affected. Individuals with poor social support systems or poor interpersonal skills, are likely to suffer a lot of mental fatigue or exhaustion because you don't have somebody to share with all the thoughts that are running through. If you are going through a period of grief, you are going through a period where a lot is happening around you. Probably you've lost a job, you've lost someone, you are struggling with your academics, the work demands are not so conducive and all that. You don't have people to talk to, and we say that a problem shared is a problem that is half solved. So shared with the right person, at least you offload some of the demands on you for thinking with someone, and they share ideas and thoughts with you. So a poor social support system and interpersonal relationship can be a risk factor for mental fatigue or exhaustion. So building a good support system is very important, where after the week of all the stress relating to work and academic engagements and all that, the tests, the quizzes, the assignments, the exams, the at work, the demands to meet deadlines and all that, at least over the weekend you get to make time with friends, and laugh over some things and all that. It just increases your chances of dealing with all the fatigue that you went through during the week. So Poor social support systems and interpersonal relationship skills can be a risk factor for mental fatigue. The list is endless, but these are some of the common risk factors or causes of mental fatigue. So, to the most important bit, what can you do? How do you address mental fatigue? Number one is to set realistic expectations for yourself. This is something that you should always remember. Set realistic expectations or goals for yourself. Sometimes, because the targets we have set for ourselves are so high, we end up overworking yourself. When we end up overstretching ourselves, and this is something that for some time I was guilty of. The expectations I had of myself made me, I was all over the place. And people were stretching me. People were stretching me with academic work, with different things, and I was there for myself and there for almost everybody, anytime, any day, anywhere. In And that is a bit of me that is selfless, and it was taking a toll on me. I had certain expectations of myself and how I want to meet expectations of others, that I was overworking myself, taking on project works of people, trying to be of help, and it was so much. Combining that with my work, with my own schedules. I remember at a point, after my undergraduate studies, when I was a teaching assistant at my department, my HOD, one time I fell sick, and I think it was getting close to exams for um for the students, and one of the courses I was handling as a teaching assistant was quite a demanding course, and students, struggle with that quantitative research methods. And I was just doing tutorials after tutorials. I was just there. They can call me at night every time, and I fell sick along the line. Had to be at the hospital, and before I realized I was back on my feet, tutorials here and there. I was back at the office, and my HOD called me and said, "You know what, Wisdom? If you break down right now and anything happens, the department can easily replace you. All these students, they will not even remember. So take time to rest." And he told me to go home and rest. I shouldn't come to work, for the week. And that whole thing, kept me in a more realistic um, sense for myself and how much I can do as a person. So always remember to be realistic when it comes to expectations for yourself and how you are there for others, especially when you are blessed with certain gifts that people end up falling on. Be realistic. Know when to say no. I have a lesson on assertiveness. Know when to say no, and don't be guilty for saying no when you know that you cannot handle that extra load. So be realistic with expectations for yourself so that you don't overwork your yourself and get yourself mentally exhausted all the time. Number two, have intentionally planned mental breaks. Mental breaks. That means that making time within your schedule as you are drawing your timetable for the week, for the day, scheduling your time for the day. Make some conscious space for resting. So that's why at work there's lunch break, and during the lunch break, you are not just only supposed to go and eat. You should make some of the time to relax. If it's some cool music you can put in and listen, just to get your mind, away from all the intellectual activity, the thinking and all that was happening, as part of your work engagement. At least something to get your mind in a relaxed state, and that will take us to practicing mindfulness meditation and other relaxation exercises. It's helpful, it's important to do all these as part of your mental breaks. Sometimes you just need a whole day off, a week off. If you are a worker, take advantage of the leave that is granted, and all that. Some people just want to overwork themselves that they don't even take their leave. it's important for your mental health and your physical health as well. And within those times, you want to practice mindfulness and other relaxation exercises. I have a lesson on CBT techniques for handling stress. You may want to check that, the link in the card, and then do some listening to the bit on mindfulness, where I talk about mindful hearing, mindful seeing, mindful smelling, mindful touching, and which one have I left out? So your senses, and how you can use your senses, in mindful living, And mindfulness is just a state of presentness, where you are present with yourself and your environment in a very relaxed manner. And you can go online and watch some mindfulness meditation exercises and relaxation exercises. We have what we call the progressive muscle relaxation exercise. You can check it on YouTube or any other platform, and practice some of these things. They help with your mental breaks and ensure that you are refueling your brain, you are refueling your mind to be able to work. Every machine, no matter how complex they are, needs some breaks, needs some refueling. And that is something that you should also pay attention to. Intentionally make plans for mental breaks and practice mindfulness meditation and other relaxation exercises. The next one, the fourth thing you can do, is making exercise, physical exercise, part of your regular routine. And by this, we are not saying that, go and spend a lot of time in the gym and be raising and all that. No, not that. If you have that opportunity, that's fine. But if your schedule doesn't allow that, then you should make regular exercise and little exercises a part of your routine. So personally, I skip every morning before I go and take my bath. In the evening before I take my bath, I have a skipping rope. I skip. I do some jogging around, my little space, just part of your routine. I have an app on my phone that I use for some normal, aerobic exercises. I don't do the arm pressing on the floor. I do it on the wall, because I struggle with the press up on the floor. So something on the wall, it's all helpful. So make exercise, physical exercise, part of your regular routine. And exercise is important because it plays a major role in improving uh, hormones that are responsible for mood and our general well-being. So we have one key neurotransmitter called serotonin that helps regulate our mood, and is also helpful when it comes to digestion processes. So when you have a good supply or production of serotonin in your system, particularly the nervous system, what it does is that it helps to keep your mood in a balanced state. It helps deal with issues of depression and the sadness and all that related with it. But if you are not exercising, which is one of the things that helps boost the production of serotonin naturally, then you are putting yourself in a state where your mood levels are always depressive, and it's not helpful. Issues of concentration that we mentioned earlier for mental fatigue, exercise helps to boost or improve the levels of another neurotransmitter we call norepinephrine or noradrenaline. And the good amount of production of noradrenaline or norepinephrine in your system helps with concentration. It helps with heart rate, and all the things that are part of making you physically well. Dopamine production, dopamine, which is called our happy hormone, or our pleasure hormone. It's also helpful when it comes to muscle related activity, and just generally improving our sense of satisfaction. So anytime you engage in any activity that is exciting, dopamine is produced. And exercising is one of the major activities that improves your dopamine levels, your serotonin levels, your norepinephrine or noradrenaline levels. So make exercise, no matter how little it is, jogging, little jogging around, skipping, a part of your regular routines. Just as you eat every day, make sure that physical exercising is also part of your regular routines. The next thing is that if feasible, take yourself away from the trigger. So if it means that maybe it is a friend or somebody that when you have interactions with, it's like it feels very mentally frustrating and depressing. Take yourself away from such, individuals, such conversations and all that. If possible, remove yourself from the trigger or the source of your mental fatigue or exhaustion. If it is a work that is so demanding that, at the end of the day, it's not helping your mental health. If possible, look for a different job, look for a different work. If that is something that is not feasible, you want to, as we mentioned earlier, have an engagement with your authority, your boss, to see how they can help you to readjust your work expectations and demands. It helps. Sometimes it takes you making an effort through assertiveness, as we mentioned earlier, not aggressive, not passive. Assertiveness. There's a lesson I've done on assertiveness. You may want to take a listen so that when you have that engagement, probably your boss or superior wasn't even thinking that you were suffering or you were having a tough time balancing everything. So speaking to them will open them up to the fact that, oh, I'm struggling with this and that, and I feel that if these uh, adjustments are made to my work schedule, it will really help me so that I will be more effective and more productive to help push the agenda of the work. So whatever it takes to make sure that the source, the trigger, you are able to either remove it or readjust it, do that. Do so. Very important. And finally, amongst the lot, take time to revel in every little success that you achieve. Gratitude is a must. If you are supposed to help reduce your mental fatigue or exhaustion, where your mind is literally tired all the time, your brain feels overworked because you are always on the high alert. It could be because, as we mentioned, you have unrealistic expectations for yourself and you do not recognize the little achievements and successes in your life. The Christian hymn says that count your blessings, name them one by one, and it will surprise you what the Lord has done. If you take time to count the little blessings in your work, the little improvements in your academics, the little improvements, the little successes, and it's all part of mindful living, and you are able to pay attention to all of these little successes and find satisfaction and gratitude in them, it helps to reduce your mental fatigue and exhaustion because you have something positive to think about. And all of this, our thoughts influence our emotions. And sometimes we are stressed out just by our thoughts. That is why negative thinking makes us more stressed. And positivity has a way of boosting our pleasure, sense of pleasure, and the pleasure hormone we mentioned earlier, dopamine levels, and listening to good music, saying good things to yourself, your self-talk, what we call your self-talk, what you are telling yourself. All of these are important. And if you are a grateful person, research and consistent evidence has shown that people that are filled with gratitude are people that have a better mental well-being. So you want to be grateful for the little successes. Live mindfully and make sure that every step on the way you are not unrealistic with your expectations, even as you strive to become all that you want to become. So that is all for today's lesson on our mental health and the topic mental fatigue or mental exhaustion. We have looked at what it is, the symptoms or signs, the causes or risk factors, and some of the key things you can do. I hope it has been helpful. Even before you go, I'll be glad if you subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it, and put in your comment. Let's get interactive as much as possible. Thank you so much, and see you in another lesson. Stay positive and stay safe.